right, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today at Activate Live. I'm Belinda Hu, Product Manager at Iterable, and I'm terribly thrilled to be joined by Adam Knight and Chris Frost from Zoopla. So what we're going to be talking about today is breaking down silos between product and marketing. Both are incredibly important teams to any business, but historically those two teams have not always been in lockstep with one another. And for any brand nowadays, that has to change. The entire experience is your product. And that really means from the very first marketing touch point to actually engaging with the end product. So incredibly important to be successful nowadays. So we're going to be hearing from the Zoopla team and hearing their story about how they came together to really change the way Zoopla works and how they can unlock growth in the future. So Zoopla folks, welcome. Very happy to have you here. Before getting into it, could you please introduce yourselves?
Of course, thank you very much for having us along, Belinda. I'm Adam Knight. I'm the Director of Engagement at Zoopla. I look after a range of digital marketing disciplines, CRM, social reach, so how we manifest our Zoopla audience across Facebook and other social applications. Look after content as a marketing function and also research and insight as a marketing function too. So how do we turn those to our benefit in quite an interesting way and relevant way for the property sector. Been in place for around 2 years now, which makes me quite ancient in Zoopla time.
And hi there, I'm Chris Frost. I'm Senior Product Manager at Zoopla. I look after a team called Registration and Profile, which perhaps unsurprisingly looks after the registration parts of the journey, of the user journey. But beyond that, everything about understanding the journey a user's on, capturing data about their behaviour through to making that available and passing it through to Adam's CRM team, for instance, to be able to personalise journeys, help match our customers, the real estate agents and the new homes builders, with our consumers, the people using our portal, and everything that sits within that nice broad world.
Awesome, lots of stuff. Love a very aptly named team. Adam, could you tell us a little bit about Zoopla for any folks on the line who aren't familiar with it?
Absolutely. So for those who aren't desperately familiar with us, we are a UK-based property portal. We've been up and running since about 2008, so one of the very early property portals in the UK. We're quite a lot like Zillow, if that helps. Those of a transatlantic bent understand. We're a challenger in the market, and we do have some really interesting elements that make us quite special. We are the place to track the value of your property over time. Which makes us the market makers. So we kind of provide vendor or seller leads, so people who are ready to sell and who want to talk to the local agent, which is a really valuable type of consumer to bring to market. And within the group, we combine a really unique blend of digital properties. So yes, we're a consumer-facing property portal, but we also supply the vast majority of the mortgage sector with the most valuable decisioning data out there. And we provide back office software as well, which powers over half of all agents' workflows. So in summary, we're a really potent, massively underleveraged end-to-end solution for the property sector. And we're trying to turn up and be incredibly disruptive right now.
So you mentioned that it's been around since 2008, you said? So 2008, and then, so it sounds like about 10 years after the fact, 2018, Zoopla was acquired by a private equity firm, Silver Lake. And I'm sure lots changed, and also they have their own ideas about, what's the best path forward for Zoopla. How did that acquisition change Zoopla's strategy compared to before?
To answer that, one of the big things that we talk about in the company is that previously Zoopla was a listed company. So it had to keep delivering quarter-on-quarter results. The investors on the markets have a very close eye on our performance. And the acquisition allowed us to, as a company, sort of step back a bit and go, okay, how are we going to grow in a 2 to 3 year period rather than a quarter by quarter kind of time frame? And that gave us, we had secure investment. We have very knowledgeable owners who had lots of support from all the other companies they've invested in. But it just gave us the opportunity to look further ahead and as part of that, develop new thinking, have more emphasis on getting the product right, get the right change of culture. It was a really kind of a rebirth, I guess, of Zoopla, which has been a tremendously successful brand of the company, but this was, in order to take it to that next level, this was I think the perfect setup. And it's been great. And a lot of us have joined because of this opportunity to come in and reimagine the business, as we put it. And it's really exciting and super fun too.
And just to build on that, really, I mean, Chris answered that super clearly. I've only really got two additions. The first of which is it provides us with incredible growth opportunities. We've been given the opportunity to define where we want to grow, what value we can unlock, what we believe the future of the property market looks like, what expertise we need to bring into the business to do that, and what partners we need to help get us there, which is where kind of Iterable joins the gang. And with that comes growth expectations, unsurprisingly. So we have a very smart and generous owner in Silver Lake. And they're now expecting us to start delivering rapid, scalable, significant and consistent growth. And that provides a very interesting, fertile environment for us to operate in, but quite a fast-paced and energetic one too.
Great words: fun, fertile, fast-paced. Very, very fun words to describe. That's awesome. As you mentioned, it is really fun. It's really awesome, but it is a big change, right? Like, as you mentioned before, it's really about quarter over quarter and very stable versus, something where you're really trying to optimize on growth and moving very fast. As you're making that pivot and you're taking stock of like, okay, where we are now, what do we need to do to be successful in the future? What did you identify as like, we might need to change a couple of things in order to reach that success we're envisioning? What did you guys identify?
So I can take this one. I think I arrived in the business slightly before Chris, and as was the ask at the time, my boss, the CMO, as he asked all of his direct reports to do, was to undertake a diagnostic audit of the CRM function. I actually came in to look majorly after CRM at the time. And within that diagnostic audit, I was expected to understand all of the elements and the incumbents that were in place right now to really prevent us from driving differentiation and growth in CRM. And there were a few, I'm not going to lie. I'll talk through a handful of them. We had significant technical platform limitations. So the ESP we had in place, the fundamental way it was connected into our back end was a major obstacle for growth and delivering contemporary CRM. There were multiple data orchestration challenges. So the behaviours on site were not being captured effectively via a modern day CDP that could provide triggers for remarketing. We had some orphan systems. There were limited knowledge in the business due to staff turnover that was linked to the acquisition, of course. And there was very limited connection or relationship between product and marketing at the time, I need to stress, because we fixed that now. And at the time, there was quite a lack of growth-oriented strategic plan. So it was incumbent on us to design that and build that together. So there were maybe one or two pretty important elements that were missing at the time of arrival.
As is often the case, there's been a bit of neglect to invest in some of the areas, the product areas, how we handle data. We are one of the best sources of purchase intent data for people buying the property in the UK, and yet we weren't really using that data anywhere near to its full potential in order to grow our business. And so, well, there'd been a lot of investment, but we knew there was huge potential to unlock that just by doing things the right way and letting that data flow into the right places and to enable the teams to do what they needed to be able to do with this sort of gold mine, this chest of data that we were hanging on to that we couldn't get into the right people's hands.
I like that chest of data in gold. So yeah, it sounds like, Chris, on your side, as you mentioned, there was a lot of investment on like the product side that needed to be made, perhaps not had been made earlier. And, Adam, you're doing this full audit and you're like, wow, there's a lot, we can do here. How did you guys realize, we're like, hey, we should team up together. I think we can work together and really make things awesome. How did that come about? And what was it like starting that out?
It was, I wouldn't say it was perfect from day one. We were both relatively new to the business, figuring things out, and the business in a lot of change generally. And I think we kind of got thrust together on a project to start unlocking some of this data. The CRM team's crying out for more data points in the simplest form, but they wanted to unlock lots of use cases that should have been available and yet there was a very new team that I was looking after that had it was very slow, very hard to make this data available. But I think what we started to do was try and understand each other. So we were two different functional teams with different ways of working, different cultures. We were a young, agile team, younger than the business, but an agile team in the product sense. Marketing operated in a very different way, which is completely normal and natural. And yeah, previously the departments have been very siloed. So I believe marketing definitely wanted more product support, but they weren't always able to get it. Product was, as it always is, quite thinly spread and trying to balance the needs of lots of different types of stakeholders. But we started working together, understanding each other. We had quite a few sessions where we understood each other's goals, how each other worked. And we kind of expanded from there to the point of, well, one of our company behaviours that we all try to focus on is called Build Together. We started using it as a thing when we were talking, but we started sharing ceremonies. So we made sure that if we were having a stand up, the CRM team at Adam and everyone was welcome to come along, because we knew that we needed to grow transparency and understand each other better. And it evolved from there to the point where we were working towards the same goals. And by working towards the same goals and understanding each other's needs and requirements and motivations and even language and ways of working, it really helped us deliver a lot more, through to the point that we got an award at the end of the year for building together. So it's a bit of a love story that lasted over, I think, 12, 18 months, and it continues to this day. But certainly, we had to work pretty hard to get to understand each other. So it's like any relationship. I think you have to understand, you have to accept, you have to translate sometimes get a bit of help from someone else to come in and mediate maybe. But yeah, it was well, I think we're both very proud of how well things went after what was a bit of a sticky start with this siloed behaviour that had become the norm in the company.
By the very nature of a business transferring from a owner operator, being sold into a PE firm, it suddenly became a very interesting melting pot of people exiting because they'd chosen that they didn't want to be around for the next phase in the company's success, and therefore a lot of people exited, a lot of people joined, and therefore you kind of have to go back to first principles of literally reaching out to people across the business, building a network, connecting with people that have shared interest, intent, and shared KPIs. That in itself takes some time, and I think that once Chris and I were kind of semi-attached to each other, and we both realised that we wanted to achieve the same things. It was very, very clear that we had shared intent. It was kind of walking all the way back away from, well, actually, no, we don't yet have the same language. We don't yet have the same shared ceremonies and behaviours, but we have the same shared intent. Okay, let's design a series of use cases that we know we all want to achieve and that we know are valuable. And I think it was at that point in time we kind of sort of rubbed the fog out of our eyes a little bit and went, actually, we definitely want the same things. Let's go off and make this happen. So it took time. It was about establishing trust and transparency, shared intent and use cases, and it all kind of comes from there. And I think once Chris and I actually got out of the way and started introducing the registration and profile team to the CRM team, kind of that's where the magic happens, is where you get those kind of zipper relationships, not necessarily just a butterfly relationship where you've got two people connecting teams. Chris and I literally get out of the way, and the magic is unlocked on a daily basis now, so really reassuring.
There's been some great moments where an engineer has gone to sit with one of the people running campaigns in CRM and just understand how it works, and from that solutions have come and enthusiasm come, and understanding what that member of the CRM team needs in order to achieve their goals. If you transport that directly, personally into the engineer's mind, then they're bought in, they're empowered, and they want to help make things better without the product manager having to be quarterback in the middle and trying to figure everything out. I think it's much more productive that way, and I think it's worked really well for us, for both teams.
That's really beautiful. Like, giving them that exposure to see each other as people, building that empathy. We're like, okay, this is the life of, one of the marketers, this is the life of one of the folks at product, or one of the engineers. And then sharing those goals, as you're mentioning. So it's really like, I'm going to steal your quarterback analogy. Do you guys don't have American football, but you guys are working on as a team together, and that does kind of change the dynamic. So that's really lovely. So let's take an illustrative example. Adam, you mentioned that one obstacle that you identified was that the previous ESP was a little bit tough. And I know that there's a lot of different companies where like maybe just the marketing team or the engagement team would really focus on the valuation. They don't really get a lot of attention from product or engineering. How did you and Chris work together to go through that evaluation plan?
So this is a question for Chris, not me.
Okay, so because we had an understanding of where we want to be in a couple of years' time, 2 to 3 years' time, because we had that alignment, that was the starting point for all of this. We worked through a set of use cases that we expected to solve, things that we wanted to be able to do within the next 2 or 3 years, the high level maybe use cases and directions, but things that other businesses are already doing, and things that we are confident are in the right ballpark for adding value, but we didn't need to have the exactly how we're going to do this, how we're going to deliver that. So by having that clear vision at the starting point, and my kind of product manager's relentless desire to focus on investing effort where it generates the most value, something that's drilled into us from our CPO, but I'm passionate about personally. I didn't want to, any of us wanted to get bogged down into a very lengthy RFP process and a very paper-based assessment of a laundry list of features. There's, I think, having been a procurement manager a little bit in the past, that you can get bogged down in just the paperwork and the ticking of boxes, but that's kind of like a vanity approach of, oh yeah, we'll check the boxes, everything's going to be fine, right? It doesn't work that way. And we wanted to focus on, well, will they solve for these cases, these things we know we need to do? We're very segment oriented. We need to find a partner who is very segment oriented too, for instance. And we have certain requirements around how we pass data on users that any solution needs to support. So by testing, we wanted to really test out the capabilities that were right for us rather than a long list of stuff. And we want to find a good partner. I think people is one of the most important things in this. Can we work with this company to do what we need to do? So we did a bit of like ruling out all the obvious candidates that weren't going to fit, and then I'm in a very light, what I would call a light RFP process, just to get some of the key things down. But we kind of knew at the beginning of the process who were the favourites for what we wanted to do, and we thought we would focus more on a workshop-based assessment of their capabilities, their capability to solve out our key problems, and also to understand a bit more in practice about their culture and their people. So we actually went in and literally had a couple of weeks of hands-on working together, saying, okay, well, here's a use case we're trying to solve with. How would we do this using Segment and your technology? And we even had Segment in the room as well as people from across our business and people from the potential partners we wanted to work with. So I think that's I haven't used that before in other places, but I think it certainly, again, for me, it's like, okay, well, the value is, can we do these few things, we think, and can we work with those people? We focus more on that than lots of paperwork and then just a vanity pitch at the end of it. That wasn't, I didn't think, the right approach. And we collaborated very hard on this. Everyone kind of jumped in board and did bits of work where they needed to. And I think we're really happy with where it went. Adam, I don't want to expand on that at all.
It just needed to be a very, very clear approach with a thought through series of use cases that we wanted to be enabled by the appointment, to make sure that those are really attached to clear business value, and work out what the right series of platforms that we were going to pull online to help us make that happen. It was a series of strategic shifts that that I knew we needed to make through the diagnostic audit that I wrote back when I first joined. The shift to real time was something that was really important to us. The ability to deliver multi-channel, the ability to recognise quite nuanced behaviours on our platform, and we had a strategic relationship in place with Segment. Therefore, we had to go where the most contemporary platforms that could help us unlock the power of Segment and unleash that through a sort of a real-time multi-channel marketing efforts that were really focused on business unlocks. And we happened to land at Iterable, and that was by far the most compelling platform and partner that we found to support that.
It was the process was kind of easy because we both wanted the same things. That alignment and understanding and vision and agreement on it was key. And yeah, there was hard work. Don't get me wrong, but because we wanted the same things and we spoke the same language, it just worked really well. So yeah, really, really happy with the way it went, the choices we made, of course, and excited for the next steps.
It does sound like a much more involved process, like Chris, as you're saying. It can be quite easy to just kind of go down a list, but I do think it makes sense, like, focus on a couple use cases which are integral to your success, and really focus on seeing that all the way through, which definitely takes more work, but it sounds like you guys had already at that point kind of built that relationship and alignment about these are both things we really want to be successful, and so we're going to go to this evaluation with the same gusto, it seems like.
Absolutely. I mean, we're talking about an investment for the next 2 to 3 years at least, and working together using this technology, this tool, this partner to achieve our long-term goals. And we have to both be very comfortable with it, and all the stakeholders around us, around the business. So it's worth that investment, absolutely. And I think we could have spent probably even more time if we were to go through some super old school RFP process, the ones that I used to have to get involved in from the previous life. Perhaps wouldn't have had certainly wouldn't have had a better outcome than actually going, okay, well, we know this is unique to us. Can your platform do it? How could we go beyond this to do cool, exciting things that we haven't even thought of yet? And yeah, we got a lot of people involved in the business who were more than happy to do that, because again, they were bought into what we're trying to achieve, and we're excited by this opportunity to be able to influence it as well. We're all product owners in our company, and we want to make things better, and that it isn't effort when to attend these workshops and take part when it's going to make everything better for the next 2 to 3 years.
Compared to some other organizations where there isn't such a strong connection between marketing and product, it sounds like it could have been a little bit different for other companies. So in your case, if you try to look back, do you think that you could have had a different outcome if you and Chris didn't work so closely through this evaluation?
In a word, absolutely. We would have landed at a completely different decision, which is probably not where we would have wanted to have been. It would have been more than likely, so if we take out the two scenarios where it's one team leading or another, it would very much have been driven by a procurement style approach, which would have meant that it wasn't connected to either the user owner, so the CRM team, or the owner engineering team, so the reg and profile teams, and it wouldn't have been aligned to both of our sets of needs. It would have been a very compromised solve all in, I think, and you have to be led by the experts in the business. Procurement does and can play a critical role at critical times. Biggest win for us was about getting our engineering teams, our CRM teams together, and introducing them to the counterparts of the platform that we were thinking about partnering with, and introducing kind of the filtration process of the use cases, the things that really make us unique, and the things that are quite hard to solve for, through the lens of consumer engagement, and understanding, really kicking the tires on the platforms to see if they can support us in those aims and objectives. There's no way we would have been able to achieve that through a procurement-led approach. And equally, if one of the teams had led and one of them had supported, you also wouldn't have gotten to the same level of commitment from the full business around the confidence of the hire. I think the engineering team, the registration and profile team, the product team, would have kind of rejected out of hand any platform that the CRM team chose themselves, and vice versa. There was a much more high risk of organ rejection. So getting to the same decision collectively, which we did, and doing that through the use case workshops, which were absolutely critical to the decision that we made, was the best solve, the most cohesive and committed solve, and one that we all bought into across the business. So a really, really reassuring way to make a decision. And ultimately, we would not have landed at the actual decision or the level of confidence and commitment to the decision that we made had we not delivered it through the way that we did.
Yeah, that sounds really powerful. Just like these two great forces, and knowing that you're both very confident in that decision, and then also taking that to the business and being like, yes, we're both totally on board. Like I think that's pretty hard to fight. You're like, gosh, they both really bought in, and that seems really magical. With the wisdom of hindsight now, and having gone through some of this together, of course, looking forward to your continued happy marriage, so to speak. For any other companies and brands looking to kind of walk the road that you guys have started, building that relationship between marketing and product, do you have any words of wisdom for them to start building that bridge together? What have you found worked really well in your situation?
In our situation, hindsight from this company and other places I've worked at, it's really important to build this common understanding of each other's cultures, ways of working, measures of success. It's really important, so what each team's trying to drive, and open communication. All of those things together, I think, can build trust, and trust is vital when you're together presenting to the CEO about this massive investment, or you're just trying to get the right set of priorities for the next couple of days. It's you need to feel like one larger team that joins the two together and be able to do that, because I think that with that a lot of other things come much more easily. Aligning around a common vision, we've talked about that. That's if you can get that in place and engage both teams with it, then everything else becomes easier too. With my product manager's hat on, I think it's important to try and focus primarily on solving problems together rather than delivering ideas or solutions or jumping just into maybe short-term things. Sometimes things have to happen because they unlock some revenue in the short term. That's fine, but when product and marketing together can orient around problem solving and grabbing opportunities for that, and then work on a range of solutions together, I think that really helps, because the people are working together on that. And the last thing for me really is just to share data on success and orient around this. I found that for product teams, it's a great motivator for success, and whether that's revenue or customers signing up or exciting things we can do with data that generate some impact somewhere in the business. Understanding those and sharing those regularly. We used to talk about the growth of the marketing database on a regular basis, and it's as soon as everyone knows that this is a goal and this is a success we're having, it's a huge motivator, and it demonstrates value as working together with the rest of the company.
I would reiterate the trust element. I think understanding that this takes time, you can't shortcut it. You are trying to establish trust between two quite different groups of people with different shared ceremonies and language and intent. And it takes time to establish the trust that's necessary to kind of pull down the departmental barriers and forget about all that and just understand what you're both here to do. And once you get all the way back to the KPIs you're trying to move, the business impact you're trying to achieve, and start building out use cases that you both believe are valuable and will help achieve that business impact, and start building on unlocking those, it all kind of falls into place. I would say probably an additional thing that hasn't been touched on is actually celebrating the successes. This stuff is hard, and especially when you arrive in a business and things aren't quite as you would want them to be, either strategically or technically or from an engineering perspective. Getting stuff moving and creating momentum is hard. Once you are moving, things get a little bit easier. So it's about celebrating the small successes and the wins along the way, and doing that at all levels of the team. it was critical that Chris and I aligned, but then bringing in our seniors, the balance of our teams and making sure that they partnered really closely together. All of that stuff, just pulling down the barriers and seeing each other as genuine colleagues who want to achieve the same things is absolutely critical. And I've also learned that product teams love donuts. So if there was anything any advice I could give around unlocking product support, apparently donuts work really well.
Yeah, you owe me quite a few donuts through this lockdown period, Adam. When we next meet in the office, you're going to have to buy about 10 boxes, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for
I
reminding me.
need to buy some shares in Crosstown.
yeah, and nothing but the best
It's a
donuts.
business investment.
Exactly.
Perfect. So, takeaways: build trust, shared objectives, clear metrics that you're moving, celebrating successes along the way, and most importantly, donuts. Just lots and lots of donuts. That's kind of what I've taken from
That's
this.
the main thing.
I think you've got it there.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. Adam and Chris, thank you for sharing your story. If folks want to contact you afterwards, is there somewhere that the audience can reach out to you?
Absolutely. I mean, pop us an email. You guys can reach out via the Iterable team, the accounts team. You can come and find us. Equally, reach out on LinkedIn. More than happy to field any queries. We'll be at the speaker Q&A in a moment or two. So feel free to reach out there, but happy to support in any way that we can.
Well, thank you all so much. And as mentioned, if anyone wants to reach out to Adam or Chris, they'll be at the speakers Q&A right after this.